Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I should talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and welcome to the first video of 2025. Now, this is a big episode because it's been a second since I've been here. I've been currently going through my own film journey where I've been writing down the things that I've been watching, the things that I've been picking up, and that's been a lot of fun as I've just kind of been a little insular about it, but I started thinking a lot over these last few weeks. There's a lot of life events that have been happening, not putting me in necessarily the best headspace, but at the same time, really looking towards the future and looking towards what I want to do on the channel and thinking about, just my life in general. And what I want to do with this particular space is get back to what I did the best in terms of how I felt. And when I say that, I mean talking with you, people who are watching this right now, other content creators, and just hearing about other people's journeys, because at the end of the day, I care a lot about what other people bring to the table. I've been focusing a lot on myself lately, and I'm still going to continue to do that. I'm still going to be doing my own film journey where I'm going to be doing this each week, and so this is like a double episode right now. But I want to restart the film journeys that I have with other content creators, other people who are watching this right now. If you are watching this and you're a friend of mine, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram because I would love to have you on the channel. But I want to focus a lot more on the community because I think the world right now seems to be literally, unfortunately when I say that, on fire. Pardon my friends in Los Angeles. I hope you are doing okay. But again, there's just a lot going on right now. The world seems to be in a very heated space, and I think coming together, doing something like this, and just collabing with other people in a similar headspace, and also just looking at the medium itself of film and looking at television and the different physical media platforms that we deal with, I think that plus the things that we do within our own lives are really important, especially for the people who kind of put this on a pedestal for themselves as like one of their best and favorite hobbies, which is that's me. So yeah, I want to hear from you, and I would love to know if you would like to join for me on this own change of mine. In fact, speaking of changes, I'm actually going to be changing the name of my channel again. I've done this a couple times now. I have been Nathan Jones since 2017 on the channel. I've been Nathan Jones for my whole entire life, but anyway, on the channel name since 2017. So I actually just reached my 8-year mark, which is kind of crazy to think about. So happy anniversary, I guess, for that. But I also switched my name not too long ago, maybe a couple years back, to specifically Blu-rays with Nathan Jones, just kind of because I was focusing more on the physical media aspect and thinking a lot more about my integration with that and what this all means to me. But as life happens, things change, and I think it's a good thing because we learn a lot about ourselves and a lot about other people. So that being said, I'm changing my name on the channel to Film Journeys with Nathan Jones, which I think is really fitting because based on what I just said. I want to focus a lot more on my own film journey, but I also want to focus on you and the people who are watching this and the people that I can point out in the community, and then kind of just explore different routes and different themes about their own lives within the medium itself. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, for the future, is I'm going to be focusing more on film journeys. And a lot of those film journeys do involve physical media, so there will be Blu-rays. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of Blu-rays. But a lot of the other things too, thinking about this early space in my year, is I want to focus a little bit more on how I interact with it. Of course, we have all these different resolutions for ourselves, which can be really grand or, really serious. But for me, I think I really want to kind of go about this slowly. One of the things that I want to do is go to the theater more often. I haven't been going to the theater too often, but today I'm going to share a lot of my theater experiences for the last 2 weeks because I did watch a lot of movies, and we'll talk about that later, where I talk about the different films that I watched for the weeks. But I want to go each week. I want to go at least once a week to the theater. Obviously, economically, I want to think about where I'm spending my money, but at the same time, it's a happy place for me to go to the theater. And so I haven't done that for myself in quite some time. So I'm going to be prioritizing that. Preferably on the weekends when I can, but obviously life happens and I might not be able to hit once a week, but I'm definitely going to challenge myself to do that. Other than that, I want to read a little bit more. I want to read at least a book a month. Try to, I feel like that's doable, right? I've been starting that kind of process in the morning for myself, but a lot of them are film books. So anyway, going back, I'm ranting now. Those are kind of a couple of my things. Spending a little bit less money, focusing more on the stuff that I have here, and then also just read a little bit more and be a little bit more thoughtful about my own journey, and then my own journey within all of the things that I'm doing on the channel. So with all that rambling out of the way, let's talk about what I've been watching for the last 2 weeks. There's been a lot of things that I've watched. There's some things I picked up, and then also today I want to cover my favorite releases of 2024. So I'm going to be talking about that a little bit. That's going to be a section of the video. I know a lot of people probably would want that separately, but I think this is a good space to put it in because this is a super episode, right? I haven't done a film journey in a bit. So we're talking about my top releases of 2024, new film name, channel name. We're also going to talk about some of the things that I watched in theaters. And yeah, let's just start it off with that. So let's actually jump over here to my favorite releases of the last year in 2024. All right, so now let's talk about the films that I picked up for the last few weeks. I actually didn't pick up too much, and then also talk about my favorite films from 2024, at least my favorite releases in physical media from 2024, and I'll talk about that top 10 list here in a second, but let's first talk about the things that I picked up. If you notice here, I change this particular background all the time, and right now it is in this childlike wonder of my own state. Paddington and Fantasia, two of my favorite animated things I've ever witnessed and bore a lot of love for. But one of the things that I picked up actually over the last few weeks was this VHS copy of Fantasia, which I used to have this on VHS quite a long time ago. In fact, if anyone's not new here, they know that this is actually one of my earliest film memories, is watching this movie and being terrified about the Night on Bald Mountain, which a 3-year-old should not watch, but here I am, right? I'm doing fine now. But I love this film so much, and I'll buy any version of it. I still need to get the Laserdisc probably, and I would love a 4K of this someday, but I don't know if Disney ever would support something like that. But Fantasia is like my favorite Disney film of all time. So buying this for $3 was a really good deal for me. So yeah, I have that next to Mickey as a Sorcerer's Apprentice, and my Blu-ray copy of that and Fantasia 2000. But yeah, so I have that. I got that for $3, and then I picked this one up for about $20. A film from 2024, which I will cover a little bit further over in the closet as we talk about the films that I watched for the last 2 weeks. But I want to show you what I picked up, and that is In a Violent Nature. I finally watched this POV slasher film, very reminiscent of Friday the 13th and the like, those types of slashers, but a very unique twist from a killer's perspective as he comes up from the grave, just trying to retrieve this locket. And it is really cool, and I'll talk about it a little bit further as we get over there. But yeah, I finally picked this one up for a good price as well. But yeah, very good film, and definitely recommend people check it out. So now let's jump into my releases of 2024, my top 10. There is no particular order here. These are just things that I have compiled for myself, and I've only dipped my toes in some of them. Some of them I have seen through and through, and I adore it, but I haven't had time to watch literally everything because some of this stuff has movies upon movies upon movies. But I know for a fact in the coming years, these are going to be some of my favorite releases of this time that I picked them up. Without further ado, let's jump into my top 10 list. Let's start off with a banger, shall we? And that banger is the Frank Capra at Columbia box set. Holy moly. I've covered this on the channel, but this thing is a beast. First of all, maybe a detractor is this is way too freaking big because it doesn't fit super well, and as you can tell, it kind of lays flat like this, angled. It has this door with all the movies in it, and I actually covered this not too long ago. I got this back, I think, in either late November or early December, but I'm so excited to finally watch a lot of these Capra films. A lot of these are just like first time on Blu-ray. Some of them are just like on 4K now, finally, like Mr. Deeds Goes to Towns and It Happened One Night, which are two of my favorite films from Capra's catalog. But the other thing too is these things slide in, which is kind of cool too. So if you want to display them like that, it's just a really cool box set, and you don't see too many labels put stuff out like this. So Sony did a good job of putting this out and making sure that this set, you know, someone that wasn't, I feel like none of us were really asking for this particular set, but this is one of the greatest American filmmakers of all time, who has made classic after classic, and you get to see a lot of his filmography before World War II, and then a little bit after as well, as he served. So it's going to be really, really insane to jump into this, but I am so excited about it. So yeah, Frank Capra at Columbia, this is probably the box set of the year. Maybe. We'll see. We'll talk about some more here in a second. So speaking of box sets, let's talk about another big one that I can get out of the way, but also talk about how grand this particular project is. It is Arrow Video's Shawscope Volume 3. So Shawscope has been a huge thing that Arrow has done for the last few years. This is, like I said, the third volume. This has a lot of the one-armed swordsman films in it, but which are like a huge deal in particular. In fact, a lot of the labels have really been putting out their various different martial arts films, like from Eureka, 88 Films, Arrow Video, and the like over in the UK. But I really, really love the design and the lavishness of these particular box sets. And as I continue my love of these martial arts and kung fu films, I'm falling in love in different places. A lot of these movies are B movies, and a lot of these movies are just kind of popcorn flicks. But at the same time, you can just have so much fun with this, and you can honestly discover a lot about yourself if you're into that kind of stuff, right? If you're into these martial arts films or the wuxia films, a lot of these films in particular have in the box set. But I love the different, you know, I guess themes that these different Shawscope sets kind of cover. And like I said, this one in particular covers a lot of wuxia in it, and it's just one of the best box sets of the year, and I just love the design of it, and I cannot wait to dive further and further into my madness with martial arts films with Shawscope. So yeah, Arrow, you did another home run here. All right, so now let's take a little sidestep to a film from BFI, one that was actually supposed to come out last year. Well, when I say last year, I mean 2023 was when this movie should have came out, but it got delayed for some reasons that I believe had to do with studio interference and things like that. But it finally came out on 4K, and that is Watership Down. Now, Watership Down is another one of my favorite films, and also one of my favorite books of all time. I read this book back when I was in college, actually, which is weird because it's like a young adult film. But a lot of my history with this particular universe of Watership Down has to do with a band that I really love, a UK crust punk black metal band called Fall of Afrafa, which, if anyone is familiar with that, which not very many people are, they'll know that there's a lot of lore that they put into this, and it sparked my curiosity back in college when I was really into music and discovering different things on Bandcamp. But going back to Watership Down, Richard Adams' Watership Down on the BFI, this release is just a stunner. It looks fantastic. It sounds great too. I finally watched it all again. I actually have the Criterion edition of this movie. This is a really kind of warped animated film that I would definitely recommend people who are like maybe 13 and up to watch. I mean, you can watch it with some permission, but there's some definitely adult themes going on here, a lot of environmental themes going on. And yeah, it's just one of the best animated films from the 70s, one of, if not the best animated films from the 70s. So that's how much I care about this particular release, and ecstatic to finally have it on 4K. So yeah, this 4K is great. It's a great presentation from the BFI, who only just do fantastic work. So yeah, very excited to have Watership Down on 4K. All right, so next we're going to move to Radiance Films, another UK label that I just adore and really, really love their work. And they put out this stunner, one that I love this film. I have it on Criterion as well. It is Haxan, from Benjamin Christensen, this early 20s film that just looks gorgeous. This is like the definitive edition of this particular release. Oh man, it looks so good. There's not necessarily too much new here. There's some extra features here in terms of, I think Del Toro did an interview, but there's the original poster art. I actually covered about this a little bit on the channel some, but yeah, I love this witchcraft, this 1920s witchcraft film that I feel like came out of nowhere. It feels like a project that shouldn't really be talked about. It's very taboo. I feel like today, even the things that are talked about in this particular release is like almost like you have to like kind of hide it a little bit. But I'm just so happy that Radiance was able to put this film out, and with a lot of the new special features involved in here, and kind of just cover this, as just one of these legendary films that I think a lot of people deserve to watch. So it's definitely worth your time. Maybe get a cauldron out and maybe make a little bit of a witch's brew for yourself. But yeah, Hoxton, definitely one of the best releases of 2024. All right, so now we're going to move to Indicator, to a double pack of a film that I've only watched a little bit of, but I know for a fact after watching the Mexico Macabre set from Indicator from a couple years ago, and I finally watched that last year, I finally picked up El Vampiro, and this is Two Bloodsucking Tales from Mexico. So this is like the prototype for a lot of the Mexican horror that would come out of that Almeida estate, which I am so excited to dive further and further into. But these films are just going to be so much fun. I already know, like I said, I've watched a little bit of the first one, but I just know how much I love that Mexico Macabre set, that I think my continuation for Mexican horror and a lot of these forgotten horror films, or at least, outside of the people who are, I guess in the cultures that have resonated with, are going to be just, I think, a big home run for people who haven't discovered stuff like this. So this is like, if you would, pick any of the films that I'm talking about today, this is the one that's like a discovery, I think, for people. So yeah, El Vampiro and this whole entire world of Mexican Gothic horror, I'm so in. All right, so next let's move to Studio Canal, another UK-based thing. I'm very heavily based in the Region B. That's just who I am. But I want to talk about something that I actually discovered here in the States, the 4K of this particular release, and I think it's just a bombshell of a box set. It is The Third Man, and it is this nice addition right here. This is one of the greatest films of all time, from late 40s. I think 1949 is when this came out, off the top of my head. But yeah, this is just one of the best films ever made. And also I just love the design of this 3D Ferris wheel. And then also it has a music box, which I think to some people can get a little annoyed. But anyway, it has all of this stuff in it, along with postcards, posters, the movies themselves, the Blu-ray and the 4K. I'm going to keep talking right now as this happens. But anyway, you can tell that this release, it deserved a 4K release, because this is one, I think Criterion actually had their initial run of this film long out of print. So finally having this upgraded to something like this is just ecstatic. And yeah, this is a movie that I think everyone should watch. It's one of the best movies of all time, and it finally has a really proper release. Even if you don't get this giant box of it, it's one of the best releases of the year. All right, so next is a film from Vinegar Syndrome, and one that a lot of people really want, or at least wanted as it came out, because it just kind of came out of nowhere. It's The Keep. This movie, I am one of those people who is like, okay, if I buy anything from this particular sale, it's going to be this. And I think a lot of people thought the same thing, but yeah, I am so happy to finally have this film. This film has been wanting a Blu-ray release for the longest time, and it finally is out. So Vinegar Syndrome put it out on 4K, no less. And as you can tell, I haven't even unwrapped it yet, but I know for a fact that this weird, bizarre film that came out, this is the second film from Michael Mann. As you know, if you know Michael Mann, you know he has made such amazing films like Heat. You also have Thief. And there's just so many things that he has done that something like this really isn't thought about, because I think a lot of this has been an afterthought. But a lot of people have been, secretly wanting this for a very long time. So finally have this on Blu-ray or 4K is amazing. I have this particular release. I hope there's a standard edition that comes out. I think there is, hopefully. But yeah, I think people need to watch this movie, because this is a gem that a lot of people wanted. And here we are on the end of the year list. So The Keep. Excited to check this one out myself. Now we're down to the last three, and I will admit that these three are probably my favorite of the year. And I think arguably so, these speak a lot to who I am. But also there's like a surprise here, and one that I knew was going to be at the end of the year list, and then another one where I'm like, yeah, I didn't know this was going to come out, but it did. So the first one, let's talk about an A24 film. This is a really cool collector's edition here of Stop Making Sense. So many people don't know this, but I have not liked the Talking Heads for a very long time. And I don't know why, but for some reason I always was annoyed by David Byrne's kind of croning a little bit, and it didn't really sit well with me. and I was in a different time in my life, and I you know, a lot has changed since then. But now, after picking this up at Walmart of all places, um, which is crazy, you can get this at Walmart, but you can also get it on A24 site. I finally understand the brilliance here. So this is directed by Jonathan Demme, you know, Silence of the Lambs and the like, but this is one of the best concert films out there. And this, you know, A24 actually a couple years back kind of remastered this and got you know, a lot of their print all over this to pretty much make the best edition of this particular concert film. And this is a definitive edition. This is amazing. This is amazing stuff. You just have so much fun seeing the wacky outfit and costume designs and the personnel changes. There's all these different cool musical numbers, and it's just a blast. Watch this with people. Watch this with friends and family. Just have yourself a good time with this movie. But this is highly, highly recommended from me. I finally watched Stop Making Sense, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Now, the next film I have here is probably the release of the year. Another one kind of like The Keep in a way where, you know, for the longest time did not have a release, and so many people wanted this movie. And Second Sight delivered. It is The Hitcher. This movie is on a lot of people's end-of-year lists, and deservingly so. This is probably the best release of the year in my, like, you know, objectively, if I'm going to go that route. But subjectively, I have another one in front of it, and you can probably guess what it is. But anyway, The Hitcher, this movie is a thriller that I did not expect to love as much as I did. Mainly because of the performances in it. Like, holy shit, the performances. But also the extra special attention to detail and special features that the Second Sight put into this. And Second Sight, you know, they are easily becoming one of, if not my favorite, boutique label because of the level of effort and attention to detail that they put into a lot of their things. Yeah, there's replacement discs that come up here and there on occasion for things. That's with every company, I feel like. But for the most part, they took their time with this. They announced this a few years back. They said they were going to put this out, and they were going to put a lot of attention to detail, and they worked really, really hard on it. And the other thing about Second Sight is they don't put out too many releases every year. They only maybe do one a month, two a month at the most, which is really, really refreshing, especially coming from a you know, a consumer standpoint where I feel like we're getting bombastically bombarded by a lot of these different you know, releases, which is great because we live in a great time. But at the same time, you know, a lot of these things, we can't afford everything. And so I think Second Sight is one of them where, you know, one of these boutique labels that I think puts their time and effort into it. And you can easily tell with this, because this is a great 4K. This looks amazing. This is a great story. If you've not seen it, be, you know, in for a shock and as a surprise. I don't think this particular edition is available anymore, but you can definitely pick up the standard edition from Second Sight and definitely pick it up because it's totally worth your time. It is an amazing film. The Hitcher, probably the best release of the year. All right, but, you know, what can beat easily the best release of the year? Well, one that I'm a little bit more privy to and a little bit more, I guess, maybe I'm a little bit more biased towards, and it is All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2 from Severin. Yeah, this has to be my release of the year. If anyone knows, I'm a huge fan of folk horror. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. In fact, I have a whole slew of folk horror stuff behind me. Yeah, I adore folk horror. And years ago when that first set came out, that was my release like of the year, and probably one of my favorite releases, you know, of all time. And it continues with this. And this is, it's incredible to see the levels of depth this particular box set adds to it, because there are 13 discs in here with 24 international folk horror classics with 55 hours of special features and a 252-page hardback book. The level of stuff that Kayla Janice and the team at Severin put together with these. A lot of these movies are, you know, never before seen for a lot of Western audiences, but that also at the same time, you know, just if anyone's into folk horror, this is like the canonical box sets to have right here, because these box sets deliver so much and add so much curiosity to, you know, this particular theme that I think is underappreciated. And from a, I guess, sociological perspective, it's really cool to see all these different cultures and how they utilize their own traditions, their own rituals that they have within, you know, their own ghost stories, or like, you know, the things that go bump in the night that scare them, or the ones that maybe they have some kind of Superstition 2. It's just really cool. I love, love, love this release, and I'm halfway through it now, but I'm adoring every second of it. So I still need to get back on this. In fact, I need to jump back into this. But yeah, those are my top 10 releases of the year for 2024. A lot of them, I still have a lot of homework to do and a lot of things to watch, but I am very happy with those releases and very thrilled about last year in terms of physical media. I think we're in a good position. But again, going back to the budget kind of side of things, I think it's starting to be to the point where we need to start thinking a little bit further about the films that we pick up and not just blind buy everything. A lot of these are blind buys, but a lot of them I have some checkered history with. Or at least I know a little bit more about those releases and why I picked them up. With that being said, I would love to know in the comment section down below what your releases of 2024 were, and let me know in the comment section down below. So now let's jump over to the closet one more time and talk about the films that I watched for the last few weeks. And we're back over here now to talk about the films that I watched for the week and give you kind of my little rundown of what I watched and then some ratings. And I watched a couple of things on physical media, and then I also watched some stuff at the Alamo Drafthouse, which I'll talk about here in a second. But let's talk about first the film that I watched last night, In a Violent Nature, right? I had just mentioned this movie that I picked it up, and I'm just going to go backwards. I'm going to jump all over the place, so who cares in terms of like what the trajectory of the time is in particular with this stuff. But In a Violent Nature, wow, what a great POV horror film. I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. Obviously, I have been in a horror mood for the last couple of months. In particular, I have my Exorcist shirt on. I talked about folk horror here a second ago. But yeah, I've been in a horror mood for some time now, and I never got around to watch this in the theaters, but I finally was able to watch it and picked up this physical disc, and what a really cool, unique kind of film to kind of upend the type of slasher that this movie is. But it is a slasher, right? It is a guy in a mask who is going around and killing teenagers and various people in his way, all because of a locket that was stolen at the very beginning of the film. I think a lot of the best stuff about this movie is the camera work and the way this is shot, just I guess from the killer's point of view, but also just the glorious, amazing Canadian wilderness that this is shot in. It just looks amazing, and I just love the aesthetics of everything. You can almost like smell the forest as you're watching this, even if it's rancid, blood-soaked, or if you're seeing that in like this really fresh morning dew type of way. There's this weird calmness to the movie that is a little unsettling, and you can tell by the atmosphere of the movie and the way it's shot. But yeah, this is a movie that I think a lot of people should watch. Even if you're not a fan of the genre, this is a really unique and interesting perspective, I think, from this particular, horror genre that I feel like has been overdone. And it's really unique in that way. And this is a really cool addition. I haven't checked out the second disc on here, which has like 3 hours of bonus features, but I'm sure I will soon, and it's going to be a real total blast here. But yeah, this movie, 4 out of 5. This is a really fun slasher film, and one that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about here in the future. So check out In a Violent Nature. If you get a chance, watch this on Shudder. I think that's on Shudder as well. But yeah, this movie is amazing. Check it out. All right, so now let's move on to the other film that I picked up alongside The Keep. It's Hundreds of Beavers, and this movie is insane in the best way possible. This movie feels like it's like shot in black and white, but it has this like kind of Looney Tunes like animation to it. It literally has all these different styles a part of it, and also has a lot of homage to a lot of like silent cinema from like the 20s. And there's just so much going on in this particular film, but they just had so much fun with this. I can tell the filmmakers just put a lot of love into this particular release. Kind of Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton type of things mixed with that Looney Tune insanity. But this is literally about a guy who loses his Applejack job and is trying to survive in the wilderness with these various animals that he's trying to hunt and kill and trying to do various things to do it, but he just keeps getting I guess hoodwinked about it. Like, it's pretty much him fighting these hundreds of beavers. You can tell these are just people in costumes. And that's what makes it even funnier. But you have to kind of be in a particular mindset to watch something like this. But this is a slapstick masterpiece. I think this is a movie that's a lot of people are going to be talking about here in the future. I love the styles here as well. Like I said, the way this is shot is really interesting and super creative. This is another one very much in Violent Nature, whereas I'm just almost in awe of how they made this movie and how they designed everything, and it's just super fun, and one of those things that I think a lot of people should check out. This movie, another 4 out of 5, a movie that I think a lot of people will have a good time with. If you're not into the slapstick, might need to pass on it, but it is over the top in the best way possible. Hundreds of beavers, yeah, man, what a damn movie. All right, so next we're going to talk about a pair of Criterion films. One that is maybe not so happy, and then the other one, also not so happy. But the first one is Happiness, which is where I kind of was trying to talk about with that silly little pun there. But Happiness by Todd Solondz. So I actually watched, this is my second film directed by Todd Solondz that I've watched, but this is the one that a lot of people were stirring a lot about as this was announced from Criterion, and one that I probably would put in my top 10 list. It's right there. Honestly, this is probably one of my top 10. I might replace something, but anyway, going to different places. This is a dark comedy, and when I say dark comedy, I mean dark. This is a movie that I think a lot of people should go in a little bit blind, but there are some sexual things going on in here that are really tough to watch, especially from a modern perspective and lens. But at the same time, I actually also I kind of applaud Todd Solondz for kind of covering a topic that's so taboo and something that's not really talked about. There's some really dark stuff going on in here, and I mean that in the I just don't want to talk about it on on YouTube, right? But yeah, you can look up the synopsis of it. But I do think that there are some artistic merits to it, and then also just in general, kind of showcasing the underbelly of the darkness that a lot of us just ignore, which this movie does a really good job of. But regardless, great cast here. We have Philip Seymour Hoffman, R.I.P. We also have Dylan Baker, Jane Addams, Laura Flynn Boyle, and Ben Gazzara, who are also all in this particular film. But yeah, these are just damaged people going through their life and doing with this addiction, these terrible addictions that have kind of ruined their own life, just all in vein of Happiness, which is, in the title of the film itself. But this movie, I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's really effed up. But at the same time, I think this movie is a classic for a reason, and why it's talked about so much from a lot of people in this space. I think this is an important film. So yeah, Happiness, check it out if you don't have a weak stomach. If you do have a weak stomach, at least read the synopsis. It's kind of messed up. But speaking of another messed up film, but in a less so way, more of a tragic film, is Farewell, My Concubine. I finally was able to watch this amazing masterpiece from the 90s, and one that I've been wanting to watch for the longest time, because this is a film that has been on my list for quite some time, just in terms of, I used to read a lot of IMDb top 250 or top 1000 films of all time, and this one would come up constantly, but I never had a really good way of watching it. So I finally have it from Criterion because they put it out this last year, and boy oh boy was I in for a good epic treat of a film. This is a story about a friendship that it lasts, I think, 70-ish years, from the early childhood all the way up to a tragic end. I won't say much more about that, but you see the turmoil going on in the background of this film too, because this is a lot of the Chinese history that is happening. In particular, this time span is the early 1900s, which obviously there was a lot of rebellion going on during that time period, like the Boxer Rebellion and whatnot, mixed in with the communist stuff of the 50s and 60s, which is where a lot of these things take place. And the kind of the tear and divide that the country got from this revolution. And there's just a lot going on in the background, but at the same time, it's focused on this play, Farewell, My Concubine, which is this classic Chinese play that is played by these two friends, right, who are playing for these roles. And if anyone doesn't know, a lot of traditional Chinese, and also just in general, I would say a lot of ancient world plays are all played by men, right? Even if they're a female role, it was played by a man. And so there's this really weird juxtaposition here that I think there's some gender and sexual things going on in the background of this particular film that I think a lot of people can maybe either relate to, or at least just like, you know, you break the stereotype of what it means to, you know, play these types of roles along those gendered lines. But besides that, it's just a classic epic, a story of friendship, really tough drama. It looks gorgeous as well. It kind of shot like a dream, very dreamlike, and you can definitely tell it's from the 90s, but in the best way possible. So yeah, this movie, 4.5 out of 5. It's that good. This movie is a classic, and definitely people need to watch this movie and check it out if you've not seen it before. And the last film, or I guess TV I should talk about, is one that I actually got not too long after my travels in the UK, because I actually watched an episode with my buddy Davey, and I fell in love with this show. And that show is Inside Number 9, which I just finished the entire series today. And man, I don't know how to summate a lot of TV that I watch. I don't like summarizing TV too much, but I do want to talk about how going about this journey of watching this comedy, mystery, thriller, this cool hodgepodge of all these different medleys of these two beautiful minds right here of Steve Pemberton and Reese Shearsmith right here, Reese. These two guys are just such brilliant writers, and they write in such a clever way, and then also just like a fun and like kind of whimsical type of way, but also like very dark at the same time. I jumped all over the place there. Each of these episodes, there's only 6 episodes per series. There's 9 series here in total. So I did space this out for like the last 6 months, honestly. I wanted to binge it, but at the same time, I'm not much of a binger when it comes to shows. But this is probably one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It is just, it has something for everybody, I feel like. It has something, it has like that clever writing, but like I said, it goes all those different genres. It goes all over the place, but in the best way possible. And there's these twists and turns that you can probably predict on some, but at the same time, you probably won't see coming. And it's just a brilliant love letter to the medium itself and what you can do with the medium and change it around in these cool different ways. And I want to watch more series like this, because this one just sparked my imagination for so many different things in my own life. And so yeah, Inside Number 9, and big shout out to Davey. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen. 5 out of 5. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Check this show out. This show is just incredible. You'll have so much fun watching this show. I keep saying movie. But yeah, check out Inside Number 9 if you get a chance. This is a great release. Now let's talk about the films that I watched in the theater. And so I've actually only watched 3 films in the theater. I had a double feature last Saturday, and then I watched something yesterday. And so the double feature I watched last Saturday was an interesting one. It was Nosferatu and Gladiator 2. And Nosferatu is one that I have really, really hyped, because this is a movie from Robert Eggers. I talked about my folk horror love. The Witch is like one of my favorite films of all time. It's even tattooed on my body. That's how much I love this particular filmmaker and also that particular film. But how much I've been wanting to watch this Nosferatu release, because when it got announced maybe 5-6 years ago, I knew this was going to be special eventually when Robert Eggers got the chance to do it. And it was really special. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. And I love the performances in particular. I think Skarsgård is amazing as Orlok, and he does a fantastic job, if you will. And obviously Willem Dafoe is always great as always. Lily Depp, Rose Depp, she had good moments in here, and I actually really like her in this particular role. But I think I need to revisit it a little bit with her. And also just thinking a little bit about Thomas as well, and thinking about his role as this. But overall, I think visually this is like one of the most gorgeous films that Eggers has ever made. But at the same time, I do weirdly feel like there's a budget issue when I say that, an originality issue, I suppose, as well. This definitely feels like a cover of Nosferatu, that's what it is. But at the same time, I loved it, right? I loved this cover. But there is something about Eggers' originality when he comes to like the stuff like The Witch or The Northman or The Lighthouse, really, like those other films he's made, where like there's this creative spark that I can tell that's going on in behind the scenes. And with this one, I feel like the cover was like amazing, but it wasn't necessarily the best. And I maybe my over hyped brain maybe went into that a little, thinking a little too much about like what is this going to be like. I had too much expectation going in. But without all that being said, I still give this movie a 4 or maybe a 4.5 out of 5. I think time will tell when I get back to this film, but I think this is like an eerie film, one that I think visually is a stunner, and I love the period design piece here, and the acting is brilliant as well. But there's something a little off about it. For me, that to give this movie like a 5 out of 5, which I think maybe in the future it might eventually lead to that, but I don't know. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Definitely check out Nosferatu if you get yourself a chance. It was a great time. So Gladiator 2, another sequel where it kind of felt like, do we need to make this movie? But I had a fun time with this movie one. I really loved Paul Mescal as our main character. We also have Pedro Pascal who is amazing in here, and just a really great cast in general. And then we have Denzel, of course, who is just a complete jerk in this movie, but in the best way possible. Just having fun with it. I could tell he's just having fun playing this villainous role here. But this movie, I don't know if it should have happened necessarily. It has some loose ties to the original, where it goes back to Maximus and Russell Crowe, which he's not in this movie, which is fine. But it is interesting to kind of see the development of it. It definitely feels a little soulless, I will say, but at the same time, you can definitely watch this movie and just have a really good time with it. There's definitely just characters in here that aren't as compelling as you would like them to be. I think Mescal is like one of the best actors. I mean, After Sun is like one of the best films the last few years in particular. And he has a lot of emotional resonance here. But I think with this epic blockbuster type of movie, I just don't feel like there's enough resonance here going on. There's also some questionable camera work. I actually laughed out loud when I watched one particular scene where we have Pedro Pascal's character and talking, usurping, some plans here. And then there's a servant in the background kind of just watching and listening. And then it pans over to her and she just like gets out of the way. And it's just like the funniest thing to me. The way this was shot was like, I'm like, this was a little lazy, honestly. It definitely is paced a little off. So, but yeah, still a fun time nonetheless. I would give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. It's definitely a popcorn film. Definitely check out Gladiator 2 when it comes out on streaming or something. You don't need to go to the theaters for it, even though it is a bombastic action film. So if you do get a chance to see it in theaters, that's cool too. The last film that I want to talk about is one I watched yesterday. And it's one that it's very interesting. I didn't know what to expect going into this. But I did watch a little film with Nicole Kidman. And that film is Baby Girl. And Baby Girl is a movie that has been getting a lot of buzz from a lot of people who are maybe not necessarily into this type of filmmaking. It's very much like Cruel Intentions in or like 50 Shades of Grey type of like, there's just sexual undertones, like, overly sexual overtones, I guess is probably the right word, is very, very sexualized, but in like a way that like is like, I don't know, very interesting to watch. Just the power dynamics, right? The power dynamics are what's at play here. But yeah, I really enjoyed Nicole Kidman in this particular film. I think she has a really fun time with Harry, of course, our other main character here, who is doing the infidelity with, as they are, doing this thing behind the back of none other than Antonio Banderas, of all people, who is Nicole Kidman's husband in this film. But it definitely has like this setup, like I said, with Cruel Intentions in the forefront of my mind as I'm watching this movie. But it kind of gets more serious, and there's some aftermath that happens in this movie that really lay out kind of the choices that we make as people and the desires we do to kind of mess up, right, and do these things that are really kind of effed up in a way. But yeah, this movie, 3.5 or a 4 out of 5. It's one that I think I need to watch again. I definitely watched it with a crowd that was having a good time with it, because you can definitely watch this with some friends, and it's definitely, like I said, with that 50 Shades of Grey type of energy, that you can watch it in the theaters with other people and just kind of like laugh about how awkward it is, but at the same time, like that's what life is like, especially these sexual acts are life is awkward, right? These acts are awkward, but we do them still, but we don't know what we're doing sometimes. But anyway, yeah, 4 out of 5. This movie was fun. Baby girl. Okay, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a long one. I rambled a lot, talked about a lot of films, talked about my top 10 releases of the year, and then also talking about the trajectory of the channel. So I'm going to be talking about film journeys with myself and with other people here. So feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. If you would love to join in a film journey, I would love to have you on the channel. Content creator or people who watched at home, I would love to have you here. Because yeah, I'm looking forward to 2025 and hopefully seeing some positive change in my own life. And so I hope the same for you. So anyway, with that being said, I'll see you around. I'm not jonesing around.